The days following Earth's announcement were a whirlwind of emotion and action. People everywhere talked about nothing else. In coffee shops, schools, and workplaces, the decision dominated conversations. Some saw it as a bold step toward independence, while others viewed it as a dangerous gamble. Emily Dawson, the journalist who had been covering the story from the start, found herself busier than ever. She traveled across the country, interviewing people from all walks of life to capture the pulse of the nation. In Los Angeles, she met a young engineer named Chris Lane. He worked at a tech company that relied heavily on alien and supplied components for its products. Chris was visibly worried. If we lose access to their technology, we're going to struggle, he admitted, rubbing his temples. It's not just about making gadgets. It's about keeping industries alive. His words echoed the fears of many who depended on interstellar trade to keep their businesses running, but not everyone shared Chris's concerns. In Chicago, Emily spoke with a passionate activist named Maria Torres. Maria stood in front of a crowd of protesters holding signs that read *Earth First and *No More Alien Rules. Her voice rang out strong and clear as she addressed the group. "This is our chance to take control of our destiny," she declared. "For too long we've let outsiders dictate how we live. Now, we can decide for ourselves." Emily scribbled notes furiously, trying to capture the energy of the moment. The divide between those who supported the decision and those who opposed it was growing wider by the day. Social media only amplified the tension. Online forums buzzed with arguments, memes, and heated debates. Some users praised President Laura Monroe for her leadership, calling her a visionary. Others criticized her harshly, accusing her of putting the planet at risk. Behind the scenes, Laura Monroe faced immense pressure. World leaders bombarded her with calls and messages, each voicing their own concerns. Some countries worried about economic collapse. Others feared military retaliation from alien powers. Even within her own administration, there were whispers of doubt. During one particularly tense meeting in the White House Situation Room, an advisor named John Harper voiced his unease. "Madam President," he began cautiously, "we need to consider the worst-case scenario. What happens if the Council imposes sanctions? Or worse, if they cut us off entirely?" Laura listened patiently, her expression unreadable. When she finally spoke, her tone was calm but firm. "I understand your concerns, John," she said, "but we can't base our decisions on fear. Humanity has always risen to meet challenges. We'll do it again." Her confidence inspired some, but not everyone was reassured. Military officials scrambled to prepare for potential threats. General Rachel Meyer, head of Earth's defense forces, oversaw the rapid expansion of orbital defenses and the deployment of advanced surveillance systems. "We don't know what's coming," she told her team during a briefing, "but we'll be ready for anything." As tensions mounted, so did the workload for scientists like Alex Bennett. Tasked with finding ways to replace alien technologies, Alex spent long hours in his lab, surrounded by blueprints and prototypes. His team worked tirelessly, experimenting with new materials and methods. Progress was slow, but Alex refused to give up. "If we can pull this off," he told his assistant, Lisa, "it'll prove that we don't need anyone else to survive." Despite the challenges, there were moments of hope. Communities came together to support one another. Volunteers organized donation drives to help struggling families. Artists created murals celebrating human resilience, painting images of Earth rising above the stars. Even children joined in, drawing pictures of rockets and planets, dreaming of a future where humanity stood tall, yet uncertainty lingered in the air. No one knew how the galaxy would react to Earth's departure. Would the Council punish them? Would other species see them as enemies? As night fell over the planet, millions of people looked up at the sky, wondering what lay ahead. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: Earth had taken its first step into uncharted territory. and there was no turning back. In the vast, glittering chamber of the Galactic Council, representatives from countless worlds gathered under a dome that shimmered like liquid starlight. The air buzzed with anticipation, as it always did during these sessions, but today felt different. Something heavy hung in the atmosphere, an unspoken tension rippling through the rows of alien dignitaries. All eyes were fixed on the human delegate standing at the center of the room. His name was Daniel Carter, and though his posture was calm, there was no mistaking the weight of what he was about to say. Daniel took a deep breath, his gaze steady as he looked out at the sea of unfamiliar faces. Some were humanoid, others bore little resemblance to anything Earth had ever seen. Tentacled beings, creatures with crystalline skin, floating entities encased in glowing orbs. For centuries, humanity had sat among them, eager students learning the ways of the galaxy. But now, everything was about to change. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, Daniel began, his voice clear and resolute, despite the pounding in his chest. After much deliberation and careful consideration, Earth has made a decision. Effective immediately, we will be withdrawing our membership from this body. The words landed like a thunderclap. A stunned silence fell over the chamber for just a moment before chaos erupted. Voices rose in every direction, overlapping in a cacophony of disbelief, outrage, and confusion. One ambassador, a towering insectoid creature with iridescent wings, leapt to its feet, clicking its mandibles furiously. Another, a small amphibian-like being, waved its webbed hands wildly, as if trying to physically stop the announcement. Back on Earth, the news spread faster than anyone could have anticipated. Social media platforms lit up with reactions ranging from jubilation to panic. In New York City, Emily Dawson, a reporter known for her sharp insights, stood amidst a crowd of people debating the decision. She held her microphone close, capturing snippets of conversation. "This is amazing," shouted a young man wearing a leather jacket. "We don't need their rules anymore. We can finally stand on our own 2 feet." But not everyone shared his enthusiasm. Nearby, an older woman clutching a reusable shopping bag shook her head. "It's reckless," she muttered. "What happens when they cut us off? What about the medicines? The technology? Do you think we can survive without them?" Emily nodded thoughtfully, jotting down notes. Across the globe, similar scenes played out. In Tokyo, office workers paused to watch live broadcasts on giant screens. In London, protesters marched outside Parliament, holding signs that read *stay or go, and *freedom over fear. Even in remote villages where access to galactic affairs was limited, radios crackled with updates, sparking heated discussions around dinner tables. Meanwhile, President Laura Monroe faced mounting pressure behind closed doors. World leaders called emergency meetings, demanding answers. Corporate executives fretted over the potential loss of lucrative interstellar trade deals. Yet, through it all, Laura remained steadfast. Sitting in the Oval Office, she leaned forward in her chair, addressing her advisors with quiet determination. "We didn't join the council to become dependent on them," she said firmly. "We joined because we wanted to learn, to grow. And now, we've reached a point where we can stand on equal footing with any species out there. This isn't abandonment, it's evolution." Her words resonated with some, but skepticism lingered. Could Earth really thrive without the resources and protection offered by the Council? Or had humanity bitten off more than it could chew? As night fell across the planet, cities glowed beneath the stars, their lights reflecting humanity's restless energy. Somewhere in space, the Galactic Council continued its chaotic debate, while back on Earth, ordinary people went to bed wondering what tomorrow would bring. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: the universe would never look at Earth the same way again. Across the galaxy, news of Earth's departure from the Galactic Council spread like wildfire. Reactions varied wildly, depending on the species and their relationship with humanity. For some, it was seen as an act of defiance that could not go unanswered. For others, it was a tragedy, a loss of potential and collaboration they had come to value. Among the loudest voices of disapproval were the Zorothians, a militaristic race known for their strict adherence to order and authority. The leader of the Zorothians, stood in the council chamber, his armored frame towering over the other delegates. His voice boomed through the room, sharp and commanding. "Earth has abandoned its responsibilities," he declared, his glowing red eyes fixed on Daniel Carter, who still remained at the council session, despite Earth's withdrawal. "They cannot simply leave without consequences. If we allow this, it sets a dangerous precedent. Other planets may follow suit, and the council will crumble." His words sent ripples of unease through the chamber. Several ambassadors nodded in agreement, while others exchanged nervous glances. The idea of sanctions against Earth quickly gained traction among the more hardline factions. Kelthor's influence was undeniable, and many feared what actions the Zorothians might take if provoked further. Not everyone shared such hostility, however. Nira, the ambassador of the Valenza, peaceful, empathetic species, watched the proceedings with growing concern. Her slender form shimmered faintly under the chamber lights, her translucent skin reflecting soft hues of blue and green. She had always admired humanity's creativity and determination, traits that seemed rare in the often rigid structure of the council. To her, Earth's decision felt less like rebellion and more like a cry for independence. After the session ended, Nira approached Daniel Carter. He looked exhausted, his shoulders slumped as he gathered his notes. "Delegate Carter," she said gently, her melodic voice cutting through the noise of departing diplomats. "May I speak with you?" Daniel hesitated but nodded. They moved to a quiet corner of the chamber, away from prying ears. "I understand why your people chose to leave," Nira began, her luminous eyes filled with sincerity. "But do you truly grasp the risks? Many out there see this as a challenge to galactic unity. Some may seek to punish Earth for it." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "We knew it wouldn't be easy," he admitted, "but staying meant losing ourselves, our identity. We've spent centuries adapting to the Council's rules, bending to fit their expectations. It's time we found our own path." Nira tilted her head, considering his words. "Your courage is admirable," she said softly. "But courage alone won't shield you from what's coming. There are those who see opportunity in your vulnerability. Rogue factions, groups that operate outside the Council's laws. They may exploit this moment to strike." Her warning weighed heavily on Daniel as he returned to Earth. Meanwhile, whispers of dissent began spreading across the stars. The Obsidian Syndicate, a shadowy coalition of pirates and mercenaries, saw Earth's isolation as the perfect chance to seize control of its resources. Their leader, a cunning figure known only as Vrax, convened a secret meeting aboard his flagship. "Weakness invites predators," Vax growled, his scarred face illuminated by the dim light of holographic maps. "Earth thinks it can stand alone. Let's test them. Hit their supply lines, disrupt their communications, make them regret leaving the Council." As plans took shape in the darkest corners of the galaxy, Earth remained unaware of the storm brewing beyond its borders. Back home, preparations continued. Engineers worked around the clock to develop alternatives to alien technology. Military forces bolstered defenses, though no one could predict what form the next threat might take. In small towns and bustling cities, ordinary people carried on with their lives, trying to remain hopeful. Emily Dawson filed another report, highlighting stories of resilience. She interviewed farmers using old methods to sustain crops, teachers inspiring students with tales of human ingenuity, and families coming together to support each other. Humanity was learning to adapt, but out in the vast expanse of space, trouble loomed closer with each passing day. Unbeknownst to anyone on Earth, the universe was already reacting, and not all reactions would be kind. As weeks turned into months, Earth's focus shifted to survival and self-reliance. Governments around the world pooled resources, launching ambitious projects aimed at replacing alien technologies with human-made solutions. At the forefront of these efforts was Alex Bennett, a scientist whose lab had become a hive of activity. Every day he and his team worked tirelessly, testing new materials and refining prototypes. Their goal was simple, yet daunting: create systems that could sustain life without relying on galactic imports. Alex spent long hours hunched over workbenches, cluttered with tools and schematics. His assistant Lisa often reminded him to take breaks, but he waved her off with a distracted smile. "We don't have time to slow down," he'd say, his eyes glued to a glowing screen displaying complex equations. "If we figure this out, it'll change everything." The pressure was immense, but Alex thrived under it. He believed in humanity's ability to adapt, and he wasn't alone. Across the globe, similar stories unfolded. In Germany, engineers developed wind turbines capable of generating power even in low wind conditions. In India, researchers created advanced water filtration systems using locally sourced materials. These innovations weren't just about replacing alien tech, they were about proving that Earth could stand on its own 2 feet. Slowly but surely, progress began to show. Meanwhile, military forces prepared for the unknown. General Rachel Meyer oversaw the construction of orbital defense platforms designed to protect Earth from potential attacks. She visited bases worldwide, inspecting equipment and boosting morale among troops. During one such visit, she addressed a group of young recruits gathered in a hangar. "We don't know what's coming," she told them, her voice steady and confident. "But I do know this: humanity has faced challenges before, and we've always risen to meet them. That won't change now." Her words resonated deeply, especially among those who felt uncertain about Earth's future. People needed hope, and leaders like Laura Monroe provided it. The president traveled extensively, speaking at rallies and town halls to reassure citizens. In Boston, she stood before a crowd of thousands, her presence calm but commanding. "Leaving the council wasn't easy," she admitted, "but staying would have meant sacrificing our freedom. We chose independence, and now we must embrace it fully. Together, we will build a brighter future." Despite these efforts, not everyone shared her optimism. Critics pointed to growing shortages of essential goods, particularly medicines derived from alien compounds. Hospitals struggled to find alternatives, and patients suffered as a result. In London, Dr. Sarah Blake worked long shifts, doing her best to treat patients with limited supplies. "It's frustrating," she confessed to a colleague during a rare break. "We're making progress, but it's not fast enough. People are counting on us." The strain of transition affected everyday life, too. Grocery store shelves occasionally went bare, and prices for certain items skyrocketed. Yet, communities found ways to cope. Neighbors helped neighbors, sharing food and skills. In rural areas, people revived traditional farming techniques, planting crops that hadn't been grown in decades. Urban gardens sprouted on rooftops, turning concrete jungles into green oases. Artists and musicians played a role as well, channeling collective anxieties into creative expression. Murals depicting Earth breaking free from chains appeared on city walls. Songs celebrating resilience topped charts, their lyrics urging listeners to stay strong. Even children joined in, crafting models of rockets and spaceships, imagining a future where humanity soared higher than ever. Still, beneath the surface, unease lingered. Reports trickled in from astronomers tracking unusual activity near Earth's orbit. Strange signals, faint but persistent, hinted at something or someone watching. Military analysts debated whether these signs indicated a threat or mere coincidence. For now, no definitive answers emerged, leaving everyone on edge. At night, when the world grew quiet, people looked up at the stars with mixed emotions. Some saw promise, a reminder of how far humanity had come. Others saw uncertainty, wondering if Earth's bold decision would lead to triumph or disaster. What lay ahead remained unclear, but one thing was certain: humanity had taken its fate into its own hands, and there was no turning back. Months after Earth's departure from the Galactic Council, life on the planet settled into a fragile rhythm. People adapted to shortages, celebrated small victories, and kept moving forward. But just as humanity began to feel a glimmer of stability, the universe delivered a stark reminder of its unpredictability. One crisp morning, astronomers detected something unusual: a fleet of unidentified ships hovering near Earth's orbit. The news spread quickly, sparking panic across the globe. Television screens flickered with images of sleek, black vessels shaped like jagged shards of glass. No one recognized their design, and attempts to communicate with them failed. Military bases went on high alert, scrambling jets and activating defense systems. In Washington, D.C., President Laura Monroe convened an emergency meeting with her advisors. Her calm demeanor masked the storm of thoughts racing through her mind. "We need answers," she said firmly, addressing the room. "Who are they? What do they want? And why now?" Daniel Carter, who had returned to Earth after his time at the Council, was called in for consultation. He studied the data carefully, his brow furrowed in concentration. "They're not Council members," he concluded. "This isn't how they operate. Whoever these are, they're playing by different rules." As hours passed, the mysterious fleet made no aggressive moves. Instead, it lingered silently, casting an ominous shadow over the planet. Journalist Emily Dawson reported live from New York City, where crowds gathered in Times Square to watch massive digital screens displaying footage of the ships. Some people shouted warnings, while others held signs calling for peace. The atmosphere was tense, a mix of fear and curiosity. Then came the message. It wasn't transmitted through conventional means, but appeared simultaneously on every electronic device worldwide. The words were simple, yet chilling. "Asterisk, you have left the fold. Prove your worth." There was no signature, no explanation, just those 6 words blinking coldly on screens before vanishing as suddenly as they had arrived. Panic erupted. Social media exploded with theories, ranging from alien invasions to elaborate hoaxes. Governments scrambled to respond, unsure whether the message was a threat or a test. General Rachel Meyer ordered troops to prepare for potential conflict, even as diplomats worked overtime to decipher the meaning behind the cryptic statement. In his lab, Alex Bennett felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. His team paused their work, staring at each other in stunned silence. "This changes everything," Lisa murmured, breaking the quiet. Alex nodded grimly. "If this is a challenge," he said, "then we'd better be ready to face it." Meanwhile, ordinary citizens coped in their own ways. In Chicago, Maria Torres organized rallies urging unity and strength. "We've been through worse," she told the crowd. "Let's show them what we're made of." Elsewhere, families huddled together, praying for safety. Schools closed temporarily as parents kept their children close, unsure what might happen next. Back in space, the fleet remained eerily still, its presence a constant reminder of Earth's vulnerability. Astronomers monitored its movements closely, searching for patterns or clues. So far, the ships hadn't fired a single shot, but their mere existence sent shockwaves through global society. By evening, the initial wave of fear gave way to determination. People began volunteering in record numbers, offering whatever skills they could to help. Engineers joined forces with scientists, farmers donated supplies, and artists created murals depicting Earth standing defiant against the unknown. Even skeptics found themselves inspired by the collective resolve. Laura Monroe addressed the nation that night, her tone measured but resolute. "We don't know who sent these ships or what they want," she said, "but I promise you this, we will not back down. Humanity has faced challenges before, and we will rise to meet this one too." Her words resonated deeply, igniting a spark of hope amid the uncertainty. As the world braced for whatever came next, one truth became clear: Earth's journey toward independence would not be easy, but neither would it be without courage. Whatever lay ahead, humanity intended to face it head-on.
Commander Alex Chen stood on the bridge of the GCS horizon and stared at empty space. 2 years ago, this area had been busy with ships from a dozen different worlds. Human cargo vessels had moved between the planets here every day. Now there was nothing. Any signs of life? Alex asked his science officer. Negative, Commander. No ships, no signals, no energy readings. It is like they just disappeared. Alex nodded. This was the 5th human system they had visited in the last month. All of them were the same, empty. The humans had not just left, they had vanished so completely that no trace remained. Take us to the next coordinates, Alex ordered. The horizon was a council scout ship. Alex's job was to find out what had happened to the humans. The council wanted to know where they had gone. More importantly, they wanted to know if the humans were planning to come back. Alex was not human, but he had worked with humans for 8 years. He had liked them. They were different from other species. They asked strange questions. They found solutions that no one else thought of. They made friends easily and fought hard when they had to. Most aliens feared humans because humans were unpredictable. Alex had learned that this was exactly what made them useful. On the planet Arcturus Prime, Governor Velshan was facing the worst crisis of his long career. Pirates had attacked the orbital mining stations 3 times in the last month. Each attack had been bigger than the last. Before the humans left, this would not have been a problem. Human patrol ships had kept the pirates away. Captain Johnson's peacekeeping force had been based here for 5 years. No pirate had dared to attack. A world under human protection. Now Captain Johnson was gone. His ships were gone. The pirates had figured this out very quickly. How many ships do we have left? Velshan asked his defense coordinator. 12, Governor. But they are cargo vessels with light weapons. They cannot fight real warships. Velshan closed his eyes. His people were miners, not soldiers. Without human protection, they were helpless. Send a message to the council. Tell them we need military support immediately. The message would take 6 hours to reach the council homeworld. Then it would take weeks for ships to arrive. Velshan wondered if his people had that long. Dr. Nina Foster was the galaxy's leading expert on human psychology. This was not because she was particularly smart. It was because all the real experts had been human, and they were all gone now. Nina sat in her office on the council homeworld and tried to write a report that the council had demanded. They wanted to understand why the humans had left so completely. They wanted to know how to predict what humans would do next. The problem was that Nina did not understand humans any better than anyone else did. She had read every book about human behavior that she could find. She had studied recordings of human diplomats and soldiers. She had interviewed the few aliens who had been friends with humans. The more she learned, the more confused she became. Humans were supposed to be simple and primitive. But their technology was more advanced than anyone had realized. They were supposed to be violent and dangerous, but they had prevented more wars than they had started. They were supposed to be selfish and greedy, but they had given away scientific discoveries that could have made them rich. Nina's report was already 3 months late. She still had no idea what to write. On the border between Kralix and Cytherian space, Fleet Admiral Thexfor was preparing for war. The Kralix Empire had been planning to attack the Cytherian Collective for 10 years. The only thing that had stopped them was the human peacekeeping force. Now the humans were gone. How many ships does the enemy have? Thexfor asked his intelligence officer. 400 warships, Admiral, but their fleet is spread across 12 star systems. If we hit them fast and hard, we can destroy them before they can gather their forces. Thexfor smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. The Cytherians had rich worlds and weak defenses. This War would make the Kralix Empire twice as large and 10 times as wealthy. He had forgotten that the last 3 times his people had tried to start this war, human diplomats had found ways to make both sides step back. Ambassador Richards had been particularly good at finding solutions that let everyone save face, but Ambassador Richards was gone now. There would be no negotiations this time. "Give the order," Thexavor said. "Begin the attack." Dr. Susan Wright had been the galaxy's expert on exotic diseases and cosmic phenomena. She had spent 20 years studying the dark regions of space where strange things happened. Her research had been funded by the Council, but most aliens thought her work was a waste of time. Before she left with the other humans, Dr. Wright had published her final paper. It was titled, "Threats from Beyond: Why the Galaxy Should Prepare for the Unknown." The paper described several cosmic dangers that could threaten all life in the galaxy. Most Council scientists had ignored the paper. They thought Dr. Wright was being paranoid. Humans always worried about things that might happen, instead of focusing on things that were happening. Now Dr. Wright was gone, and her research was gone with her. The computer files had been deleted, the physical samples had been destroyed, even her laboratory had been stripped bare. On Counselor Vexithara's homeworld of Zephyr, people were starting to panic. The communication networks had been down for 6 months. Messages that used to take hours now took weeks or months to deliver. Trade had slowed to almost nothing. Medical supplies were running low because the supply ships could not coordinate their deliveries. Vexithara sat in her office and read reports from across her empire. Every day brought new problems. Factories were shutting down because they could not get the materials they needed. Colonies were going dark because they could not call for help when things went wrong. She picked up a data pad that contained human, technical manuals. Before the humans left, these manuals had been freely available to anyone who wanted them. Now they were worth more than gold. The manuals showed how to build faster-than-light communication systems. The problem was that no one could understand them. Human engineering was different from anything other species used. It combined multiple disciplines in ways that seemed random, but somehow worked. Vexithara had hired the best engineers in her empire to study the manuals. After 6 months, they had managed to build one small communication relay. It worked for 3 days before breaking down in a way that no one could fix. In the depths of space, something was stirring. It came from the void between galaxies, a place where no life should exist. It was old and hungry and patient. It had been waiting for the right moment to move into this galaxy. The thing had been watching for thousands of years. It had learned about the different species and their strengths. It had studied their weapons and their defenses. It had been planning how to defeat them. The thing had been most worried about one species, the humans. Humans were unpredictable. They found solutions that should not work. They refused to give up even when they should. They had a way of bringing other species together to face common threats. But now the humans were gone. The galaxy was divided and weak. Communication was poor. Military forces were scattered. The different species were starting to fight each other instead of working together. It was time to begin. Commander Alex Chen finished his survey of the former human territories and set course for the Council homeworld. His report would not be what the Council wanted to hear. He had found no trace of where the humans had gone. They had not left a single clue behind. It was as if an entire species had simply decided to stop existing. But Alex knew better. Humans did not just disappear. They were somewhere out there, probably building something new. The question was whether they would ever come back. Looking at the state of the galaxy now, Alex hoped they would. The alternative was too frightening to think about. The Council had wanted to teach humans a lesson about their place in the galaxy. Instead, they had learned a lesson themselves. Some lessons come too late to matter. The first sign of the Void Plague appeared on a mining world at the edge of Scytherian space. The planet was called Kepler 442, and it had been home to 3 million aliens who worked the crystal mines there. Captain Diana Ross of the cargo ship Lucky Strike was the first to see what happened. She dropped out of hyperspace, expecting to pick up a load of rare crystals. Instead, she found something that made no sense. The planet was still there. The cities were still there. But everything was wrong. The buildings looked like they were made of black glass instead of metal. The mining equipment had turned into twisted shapes that hurt to look at. The ships in orbit were still flying, but they moved in patterns that followed no physics Diana understood. "Get us out of here," Diana told her pilot. "Right now." But it was too late. Something reached out from the planet and touched the Lucky Strike. The ship's metal hull began to change. Diana watched in horror as her cargo bay transformed into something that was part machine and part living creature. Diana managed to send one message before her ship stopped being a ship. "Stay away from Kepler 442. Something terrible has happened here." That message reached Dr. Carl Peterson at the Galactic Medical Center just as the first refugees from the mining world arrived. They were not refugees in any normal sense. They were something new and horrible. The beings that had once been Cytherian, miners still walked and talked, but they were no longer truly alive. Their eyes were black holes that seemed to go on forever. When they spoke, their voices came from nowhere and everywhere at once. "The change is coming," they said in perfect unison. "All will be remade. All will serve the purpose." Dr. Peterson had been trained to deal with diseases and injuries. He had never seen anything like this. The medical scanners could not tell him what the creatures were made of. Blood tests showed results that changed every time he ran them. Within hours, the creatures had infected half the medical staff. The infection did not spread through contact or air. It spread through understanding. The more you tried to figure out what was happening, the more likely you were to become part of it. Dr. Peterson sealed the medical center and sent a priority message to the council. "Quarantine all vessels from Kepler 442. Do not attempt to study the affected beings. This is not a disease. It is something else." The council ignored his advice. They sent research teams to investigate. Within a week, the Void Plague had spread to 6 more worlds. Admiral Thexivore was in the middle of his war against the Cytherians when the plague reached his fleet. His ships had just destroyed 3 enemy worlds and were preparing to attack the Cytherian capital when the reports started coming in. "Admiral, we are receiving strange signals from the 7th Fleet," his communications officer reported. "What kind of signals?" "I cannot describe them, sir. They are not using any known language or code. But somehow, I understand what they mean." Thexivore felt a chill run down his spine. "What do they mean?" "They are saying, 'Join us. Become more than what you are. Serve the greater purpose.'" The 7th Fleet had been investigating one of the infected worlds. Now 30 warships and 50,000 Krallic soldiers had become something else. Something that was no longer interested in war between Krallics and Cytherian forces. The infected fleet turned toward the Krallics' homeworld. They moved faster than any ships should be able to move. Their weapons fired energy that no one recognized. When they attacked, ships did not explode. They changed. Thexivore ordered his remaining forces to retreat. For the first time in his military career, he ran from a battle. He had no choice. You cannot fight an enemy that turns your own weapons against you just by existing. Counselor Vexithera watched her homeworld die from her flagship as she fled toward Council space. Zephyr had been one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. Her people had built cities that lasted for 10,000 years. They had art and music and philosophy that other species could barely comprehend. Now all of that was gone. The Void Plague had reached Zephyr 3 days ago. Vexithara had watched through orbital cameras as her beautiful cities transformed into geometries that hurt to look at. Her people had become part of something vast and alien and wrong. The plague did not kill. That would have been mercy. Instead, it absorbed everything it touched and made it part of itself. Buildings became neurons in a cosmic brain. People became cells in an organism that spanned star systems. How many ships escaped? Vexithara asked her aide. Perhaps 50,000 throughout the Empire, Counselor. Most of our worlds fell before they could send warnings. 50,000 ships out of an empire of 10 billion people. The Zephyrian civilization was essentially extinct, all because they had not listened when humans warned them about threats from the unknown. Vexithara remembered Dr. Susan Wright's final paper. The human scientist had predicted something exactly like this. She had warned that the galaxy was not prepared for cosmic-level threats. She had begged the Council to fund research into exotic defense systems. The Council had called her paranoid. They had said humans worried too much about imaginary dangers. Now Dr. Wright was gone, and her research was gone with her. The galaxy faced its worst crisis in history with no idea how to fight back. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was held on a space station at the edge of Council space. Representatives from 37 surviving worlds gathered to discuss what could be done. The mood was desperate. Half the galaxy was already infected. The plague spread faster every day. Conventional weapons were useless against it. Entire fleets had been absorbed and turned against their former allies. "We need to contact the humans," said Quindal, the old Centaurian who had always been friendly to humanity. "They may have solutions. We do not." Vexithara wanted to argue, but she could not. Her pride had cost her everything she cared about. She would swallow what remained of it if it could save the galaxy. "How?" asked the Altarian representative. "We do not know where they went. Our communication networks are still broken. Even if we could reach them, why would they help us?" The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. Everyone in the room knew the answer. The humans had no reason to help the galaxy that had rejected them. They had every reason to let the Council burn. "We have to try," Quindal said. "Send messages on all frequencies. Use every communication system we still have. Tell them we were wrong. Tell them we need them. Tell them the galaxy is dying." The messages went out on old radio transmitters and backup quantum networks. They were broadcast into empty space toward the regions where humans might have gone. Most of the signals would never reach anything. But maybe, just maybe, one would find its way to human ears. Captain Tony Miller sat in the communication center of the hidden human observation post beyond the galactic rim. He had been monitoring the situation in the galaxy for 2 years. He watched alien civilizations struggle without human help. He had seen the trade routes collapse and the wars begin. Now he was watching something much worse. The analysis computers showed the plague's spread pattern. Red dots marked infected systems. The dots were multiplying exponentially. At this rate, the entire galaxy would be consumed within 6 months. Tony's orders were clear. Observe and report. Do not intervene under any circumstances. Humanity was building a new life outside the galaxy. They could not risk exposure to whatever was destroying their former neighbors. But Tony had fought beside Zephyrians and Cytherians and Centaurians during his time in the peacekeeping force. He had saved alien lives and been saved by alien friends. Watching them die felt like watching his own family suffer. His hand hovered over the communication controls. One message could change everything. It could bring humanity back into the galaxy's problems. It could also save billions of innocent lives. Tony thought about Jake Morrison, who had walked out of the council chamber 3 years ago with such dignity. He thought about all the human scientists and soldiers and diplomats who had tried so hard to build bridges with alien species. Would they want to save the galaxy that had rejected them? Or would they say that some lessons had to be learned the hard way? Tony made his choice. He opened a communication channel that had not been used in 3 years. His message was brief and coded, but it would reach human command within hours. The message said, "The family that threw us out is in trouble. Do we help them or let them burn? Far away, in a place the galaxy had never found, that message would start the biggest argument in human history. Some would say the aliens deserved what was happening to them. Others would say that humanity had a duty to help, no matter what had happened before. The debate would rage for days while the void plague consumed system after system. Every hour that passed meant millions more lives lost to the cosmic horror that was remaking the galaxy in its own image. Time was running out for everyone.